Liu Che, the new infantry commander, was added to Rise of Kingdoms officially around probably 3 or 4 days ago, and today I'll be giving you my Liu Che in-depth guide. I'll go over all of his skills, I'll discuss his talents, I'll discuss his best pairings, I'll discuss which equipment work best with Liu Che, and finally, I'll tell you if he's even worth investing in. So if you want to know more about Liu Che or you want to maximize your potential power with him, you need to check out the rest of the video. Now let's begin by discussing Liu Che's skills, and the first skill we have is his active skill, where he does 2250 damage factor to 5 targets in an arc-shaped area. He also does a 40% march speed reduction to each target that he hits. Keep in mind, his active skill damage is not normal damage factor, it is actually smite damage, and this form of damage factor will ignore all skill damage taken reductions, but is not boosted by skill damage boost. It is instead boosted by normal attack damage boost. So do keep that in mind. It's a little bit different, but it is a very, very strong effect, and it is new. It is a thing that pretty much currently in the game only Liu Che has, and it is a fairly strong part of his kit. Liu Che's next skill is his second skill, which gives him probably the majority of his stats, and in this skill he gains 20% infantry defense just all the time, and if he's using only infantry units, he gains 20% increased march speed and 20% skill damage taken reduction. That is a really, really, really strong, basically, skill right there. You're getting the majority of the stats you would get in most commanders in just one skill, so you're going to get a lot of value from your gold heads right here. I am a really, really big fan of the march speed as well. That is probably the most powerful thing in that kit right there, purely because that's going to allow him to get away from a lot of battles. I am obviously a big fan of the skill damage reduction as well, since currently skill damage is still the meta, even though smite is strong. Skill damage, you're going to notice it a lot more often, so he's going to take a lot less damage from ZHUGE AoEs, YSG AoEs, Nevsky, drone AoEs, anything that's going to deal an AoE damage, he's going to take less damage, and he's got the march speed to get away from a lot of tough situations. His third skill though, not as amazing. He gains 20% increased attack when fighting other troops, and whenever he launches a normal attack, 25% chance to deal additional smite damage of 300 to the target with a cooldown of 5 seconds. So this skill, really low number of attack right there. You'd probably expect around 30 to 40% if you're looking for a good number, so that's not that important. The smite damage is also pretty low, and the cooldown obviously isn't going to be that helpful. So we're looking at a third skill here not being too strong. Thing is though, the third skill actually links in with his fourth skill, which makes him deal 10% more normal attack while on the map, which is just a base stat increase. But whenever he deals smite damage, he actually reduces the damage dealt by the target troop with 10% for the next 3 seconds, cooldown 5 seconds. So we're looking at a commander right here is going to have a passive all damage reduction, and the way it triggers is through dealing smite damage. So you can either do that through obviously your active skill, or you could do it through that third skill. As you can see right here, this smite damage is going to actually trigger that fourth skill, allowing you to try and keep up that damage reduction on the opponent more often than just if you're running only the active skill. So that is actually a fairly strong third skill when you put it together with the fourth skill, but it is not game breaking, and the stat numbers on the third skill especially are pretty low. Now, other than those skills, we've got his expertise. That's the last skill. Get them all, you get the expertise. And the only thing his expertise does is it allows him, while on the map, to have a 25% chance when doing a normal attack to launch an extra normal attack. So that is actually extremely, extremely strong. It means any commander with something based on a normal attack chance is going to be able to basically get 2 chances to launch it. That means his extra smite damage here might have an extra chance to launch if that actual extra normal attack actually gets it to trigger. Also, launching an extra normal attack means you get double the rage on that turn, you deal double the damage, and you do not take counter-attack damage back. That is a really, really strong part of his kit, and it's going to play a lot in the accessories that I choose for him. Now, what skills are going to be the best on Liu Che? Well, I would say if you don't want to go for that expertise, a 5-5-1-5 commander would be extremely, extremely strong. You got your active skill, you got your second skill that can give you a ton of stats and a ton of damage, and then you don't have to go for the third skill because it's only some attack and some slight low amounts of damage factor, which aren't going to change much. And then you could just max that fourth skill and you get another 20% of highly valuable stats right there. So you're going to skip the less valuable skill, which is going to get most of its value through the fourth skill and doesn't need to be leveled up to get that value. And you're going to get the extra stats on the fourth skill without having to invest the extra like 300 and something gold heads. So really, really nice plan if you want to go for a 5-5-1-5 Liu Che. But currently, I think that his expertise is worth it. So if you're going to invest in him right now, just go for the expertise. He's the brand new strong commander. I don't think he's going to get nerfed. I don't think they're going to add any commander that's going to hard counter him for a little while. And he's going to be the current meta. So if you expertise him right now, you definitely will not regret it. And he's got some really, really strong parts of his expertise. So it's not a bad decision in any way. It's not like Guan's expertise where it's like maybe you can if you're working with specific commanders. Liu Che's expertise is just, he's going to work really well with pretty much everything in the whole entire game, purely because normal attacks play a massive role in the game, and this is a really, really strong part of his kit. In terms of when he would be field usable, I would say a 5-5-1-1 Liu Che is field usable. It's not going to be amazing. I still prefer at least having that 4th skill max, and if you have his expertise, obviously that is the best. You're going to get a lot more value from his expertise. You probably, with a 5-5-1-5 Liu Che, get around 80% of his value. With his expertise, you get another 20%. So it is definitely worth it, in my opinion. But if you're one of those players who don't really want to go for the expertise, it's certainly understandable to just keep him at that 5-5-1-5 level. Now, what pairs would I recommend for Liu Che? Because he's a little bit of a weird commander, dealing smite damage. A lot of commanders in the game currently wouldn't work as well with him, but his best pair currently is just easily Scipio Africanus. I mean, most players would have expected it, the meta infantry commander with the meta infantry commander. So I think Scipio is going to work as both the primary and the secondary, and so would Liu Che. But if I were to run it personally, I'd run Scipio primary, Liu Che secondary. But there is the argument of making Liu Che primary to get that active skill to trigger more. Though I think that if you run Liu Che as the primary with Scipio, you're going to notice that everyone's going to target Liu Che. So in most of the combinations I would recommend running him as the secondary to kind of conceal him. So with Scipio, though, I think he's going to work extremely well with Liu Che, purely because, well, A, in the testing results, it's working well, and B, Scipio's just got a ton of stats, a lot of march speed, which allows you to get away from a ton of combat situations, especially with Liu Che's extra march speed, and Scipio has an extra skill which is related to normal attacks, where he can deal additional damage factor for 3 seconds, up to 1,500, and the way it triggers is each attack he deals, 10% chance of dealing that damage. So if you get the extra normal attack of Liu Che, it's pretty much a 20% chance in that one turn to deal that extra damage factor, which is really strong. You're going to get it to trigger just that much more often, and I think that's definitely a main part of Scipio's kit that Liu Che is pretty much boosting if you have him at that expertise level. Though do keep in mind, Scipio's expertise, where he gets the extra rage from a silenced target, is not actually going to work very well with Liu Che because he does not silence anyone. So maybe Scipio is not an expertise anymore commander, maybe he's just like a 5-5-5-1 commander, because you don't particularly need that expertise. But then again, Scipio's whole entire kit is just super strong, so you could still run him with Liu Che even if he is expertised. Other pairs for Liu Che, I would say he works extremely well with Pyrus and what I've seen, but most players don't have Pyrus, nor do I recommend investing in Pyrus. He'd work decently with Alexander the Great, purely because, like I said before, the extra normal attack trigger is really, really nice. And he would also work okay with Tariq and okay with Sargon, because they are just the meta infantry. They're going to perform pretty well. One final commander pairing for Liu Che I would like to mention, which is a little bit more of a skeptical pairing, we don't 100% know how it's going to perform, is Gorgo with Liu Che. It is 2 of the new commanders together. The reason I really like it is because Gorgo, yes, she's a garrison commander, but she works good on the open field. From what we've seen, she's going to be a strong commander, and because she's a smite damage commander and her active skill works really well with other smite damage commanders, she works extremely well with Liu Che on the open field. She's got a fast rage cycle, she's got high damage herself, and she's somewhat tanky. So she's going to work well with Liu Che, Liu Che's going to work well with her, and that's a good infantry pairing, but I'm a bit skeptical to actually recommend it at the moment, purely because we don't 100% know how it's going to perform. While we do know how some of these other commanders will perform, we don't really know as much about Gorgo, and since Liu Che, we don't 100% know everything about him, we also cannot 100% confirm if that pair is going to work, and it's a lot more sketchy than pairs like going for Scipio, who's pretty much got to have some guaranteed value. Now that we know Liu Che's best pairs based on the current meta commanders, what would his worst pair be that a lot of players would consider running? And the one commander that you're probably thinking I didn't mention is Guan Yu, and that's not by mistake. Guan Yu does not work with Liu Che. They just do not go together at all. There is pretty much no synergy between them. Guan Yu is a high skill damage commander who is lacking on a lot of defensive stats. Liu Che is a high smite damage commander who is also somewhat lacking on defensive stats. So Liu Che and Guan Yu just does not work. From what we've seen in the battle simulator and what I would expect to see on the open field, yes, it's AoE to like the absolute max, but I would rather just run Liu Che with Scipio, who does the same amount of AoE and more damage factor overall, then run him with Guan, who is lacking on march speed in most situations, lacking on stats, lacking on damage almost compared to Scipio. So Guan Yu just is not the commander for Liu Che. Even though Guan Yu has the skill tree, which I really like, it's just way too squishy, and Guan Yu is lacking on pretty much every other stat besides damage. So it is not a good pair with Liu Che, and one I really want to urge you guys to stick away from. Now, if you were to run Liu Che as the primary, what talents would you use? Well, Liu Che is an infantry versatility attack commander, and only one other infantry commander in the game, to my knowledge, actually has this. This is CJ. So I'm going to be showing you the current talent tree I would recommend by switching over to roktalents.com right now. So here is Liu Che's talent tree. I think this is probably the best route you could go, since you can't really get much better than this. Liu Che is a commander with fairly bad talent trees, to be honest. I mean, infantry talent tree is obviously good, but every single infantry commander has that. Attack talent tree, not very good. Versatility talent tree, absolute garbage. So I put pretty much every single point I could into the infantry tree. It's going to give you the most stats per point you're putting in. And then the rest I kind of just threw into the attack tree because it's just better than the versatility tree. So you're kind of in a bad position here. Most of the later skills in the attack tree kind of suck. I mean, you could consider going down to fight to the death, but keep in mind you're taking more damage. And then also martial art mastery, you're dealing more normal attack but reducing active skill damage. So the only thing really good in the attack tree is just going for base stats, and even then the base stats in the attack tree just aren't that high, besides the extra rage, which is still lower than the infantry rage. So really the attack tree just isn't that good, so I don't really like Liu Che's talents, which is the main reason I don't like running him as a primary, but he's still going to work as a primary, and this is probably the only talent tree you could use. I also would like to mention that if you want to do a different variation from this, don't get Effortless. It's probably one of the worst talents unless you're rallying, and most players are not rallying with Liu Che. And don't get Victory Charge because that is also one of the worst talents in the game. So a lot of the talents in the attack tree are just not that good, but in terms of the infantry tree, they are fairly strong, and this build is probably going to give you the most value you can possibly get, though there are obviously other commanders with much stronger talents out there. Now that we've looked at Liu Che's pairs and talents and skills, what about his equipment? Because he is currently a little bit of a weird commander in terms of which equipment is best for him, because he is getting a lot of extra boost in terms of smite damage, and also a lot of extra boost in terms of having an extra normal attack pretty much. So with his accessories, anything that's based around dealing normal attacks to get something to trigger is going to be immaculate with Liu Che, because Liu Che is dealing so many extra normal attacks, so you're going to be able to trigger these accessories a lot more. And most of the time, besides Ring of Doom, every single accessory doesn't really have a cooldown to them. They may have an inbuilt cooldown that we don't know of, but usually those cooldowns are like 2-3 seconds, which don't really change much. So Liu Che is going to be able to trigger most of these accessories much more often. And an accessory like Silent Trial especially, you're looking at him basically being able to double the reduction that he's dealing on the opponent, reducing their rage by 20 points, which is very, very strong. So out of all the accessories though, I think the most powerful for him as a solo march, just straight up a ring and horn. Obviously, they're going to work extremely well with him, but they're going to work extremely, extremely well with him. So if you have him on other marches, it might actually be worth switching him onto Liu Che because he's going to benefit from them more, since he can trigger them more often. I would also like to give an honorable mention to these debuffing accessories of the Concealed Dagger and Mora's Web, purely because he's going to trigger those a lot more, which means you can actually get them to stack on the opponents more. You're going to get the debuffs at a higher potency, and therefore your marches can deal extra damage. So if you find Liu Che is one of your faster marches, if you throw on Mora's Web and you throw on Concealed Dagger, it's going to be actually an oddly good and very, very strong debuffing march, purely because of those two accessories. But I will also warn you to steer away from some accessories. First of all, Greatest Glory, I know it's a normal attack increase. I wouldn't do it though, purely because the other accessories are just way more valuable, especially on Liu Che. Obviously, Pendant of the Eternal Night dealing skill damage is useless for him. And then Vengeance, just some counterattack damage increase, is also very, very useless. So if you're going for anything Ring and Horn, if you're not going to go for that, go for Concealed Dagger and Mora's Web as a debuffing march. I wouldn't recommend Kurak's War Drums, they're not that good, and I would not recommend Seth's Call, it's not that good. So mainly, if you want DPS, you go Horn of Fury, Ring of Doom. If you want debuffs, you go Mora's Web, Concealed Dagger. Very, very simple. If you don't have either Concealed Dagger or Mora's Web, most players don't have Mora's Web, you can throw on a Silent Trial, you could throw on a Ring, or a Horn. I would personally run a Ring in that situation, but a Horn would work for the faster rage. Though a Silent Trial is a good epic accessory if you're just running a Dagger with your Liu Che, and that's once again still going to be a very strong debuffing march, and it's definitely going to be stronger than running a Delane's Amulet. So overall, I think accessories on Liu Che are going to be much higher priority than most other commanders, purely because he's going to be able to trigger them a lot more often. Now, before we go over the verdict of whether or not you should invest in Liu Che, I would like to discuss a little trick to access a few more of his goldeds, which a player actually told me about. If you get him from the sign-in spoils, which is currently how you unlock him if you're in Season 3 and beyond and you log in for 7 days, you get him for free, just like by logging in. And after that, you can actually get more goldeds for him by purchasing bundles and going into the Epic Glory section and selecting Liu Che out of the commanders you own, because this is based on any commander you own. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter when they were released, you can select them and get extra gold heads for them whenever you spend money and buy stuff. So if you're looking to buy things in the Epic Glory event regardless, then a commander like Liu Che is going to be a really high value commander, since you're going to be 50 gold heads ahead of most players, but you will have to be a little bit patient and wait for him to fully come out of the sign-in spoils. So if you want to get extra gold heads for him, first of all, you get a free unlock regardless of if you want it or not, and second of all, you can select him to be in the Epic of Glory to get even more gold heads, which is going to allow you to save, like I said before, I think it's almost 50, if not slightly more than 50 gold heads, which is really nice, and it's going to be very strong. Now, other than the Epics of Glory, I don't think he's going to become like a limited commander. I'm pretty sure Liu Che is just going to be in the Wheel of Fortune once that's done. So after we see the sign-in spoils finish, after the Epics of Glory is kind of gone, and most players have either unlocked or not unlocked Liu Che, then we're going to see him appear in the Wheel of Fortune. I don't think it's going to be just a one-off seasonal commander like Lu Bu. Since it literally says Origin Wheel of Fortune here, we're going to pretty much guarantee he's going to be in it. So Liu Che is coming to the Wheel of Fortune at some point, though I don't know when. If I were to predict, it would be this coming Tuesday, and I also presume Gorgo would actually come this Tuesday as well. So now, what is my final opinion on Liu Che? Should you invest in him? And I think the easiest answer is just, yeah, you should. He is a strong infantry commander. Like when ZHUGE released, I said ZHUGE is pretty much a must invest. I'd say Liu Che is like the ZHUGE for infantry. It's very simple. He's a unique spin on a ZHUGE for infantry players, and he's going to be very strong in the field. He's going to be the current field meta for infantry. He's going to work extremely well with CPO. He's probably going to be the main dominant infantry march, and he's going to counter the current cav meta quite well. So if you're looking for another infantry commander, you're looking to optimize your infantry meta ball, Liu Che is definitely a good choice for you, and since a lot of players are going to get him for free, it is just that much more valuable to invest in him right now, since he's going to be the meta, so many people are going to be using him, and you're going to have him at a higher skill level than them, so you're going to be able to defeat those players. So if you're looking to invest in any commanders at the moment, I think Liu Che is probably my #1 pick for most players, especially if you already have a CPO expertise and you're looking to replace that Guan, who might be trading a little bit worse than a Liu Che would. So if you want to be able to improve the infantry marches, I'd say Liu Che is a good way to go. If you're looking to run 2 infantry marches, Liu Che is pretty much a must-have at this point, probably replacing the Guan Yu in a Guan CPO march. So overall, Liu Che definitely a strong commander, and most players should probably consider investing in him. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, or at the very least found it entertaining, consider joining the Archer Syndicate Discord, where you can chat with me and other channel members and other channel subscribers about anything in the game. You can also advertise your kingdom. You can advertise a jumper group, or look for a kingdom or jumper group in my Discord server. It is a really nice, small Rise of Kingdoms community, and I've been noticing as it gets bigger and bigger, we're becoming even more active on that server. So if you want to find a nice Rise of Kingdoms server to chat with other players, ask any questions you like, my Discord server is definitely one of the go-tos, and if you want to join it, the link will be in the pinned comment and also in the description, so I highly recommend checking it out. Now, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Please say that recorded.